And this is where we find ourselves every now and again at this time of the year,
year,
reporting this unfortunate situations where Nigerians die needlessly from flooding. Well, we have an environmentalist, John Ekoko, right here in the studio with us. Good morning. Good to see you.
Good morning.
Like you said before we came on the air, yes, the rains are here and you're here again. This unfortunate incident, is it avoidable? The governor of Kasina State, Aminu Masari, said, look, this is totally a natural disaster. There's nothing we could have done, especially considering the fact that in his state, provision had been made for a drainage system, you know, and all of that. Yet this happened.
Once again, good morning.
Morning.
Morning, Mike. Morning.
Yeah. Good morning.
It's partly correct. It's not completely correct. The floods, fortunately for us, we know their seasons. One of the things we've not done is to do what I call forward planning. And most of the areas typically badly affected are these interland communities, slum dwellings, unplanned areas, highly congested settlements. Go and check. The drainage there will be poor. There will be no outlets for water. And there will be no provision to receive a high volume of water when it comes. It's natural to the extent that the intensity may be higher than usual. But one of the things we have failed to do is what we call climate-sensitive habitation.
What, explain to us exactly what that means.
It means so much, and it's so simple.
Okay.
Educate the dwellers in these risk-prone areas. 2, even in the structures that you build climate-sensitive structures that can withstand. Because I saw some pictures, and let me say my heart goes out to those families. Because very sadly, by the time it happens, it's too late. Look at the Edo State issue, where a woman and a child were
swept away.
Just imagine that. You don't even know that there's a gutter there. Right? So, the issue remains, fundamentally speaking, the rate of urbanization in Nigeria is the highest in the world. In the 70s, maybe in the 60s, about 54 urban areas. In the 80s, it had increased to about 300. In the about 19, it was about 456. Now it's 840-something urban areas. What are we doing to develop the rural area so that this extent of migration can be curtailed? One of the problems of urbanization is the planning problem. The government simply cannot cope with the rate of increase in urban areas.
All right. When things like this come up, we often point to government and so on. We know that we have institutes of urban planning, estate surveyors, and all of that. What are their roles in assisting to ensure that there's a proper planning of our landscape and our homes?
Most of the bodies you call are advocacy bodies.
Okay.
They do not have executive powers. What that one tends to is enforcement of the law. One of the greatest problems we have with our settlements is lackadaisical and haphazard settlements. I know a lot of places where you will see a confirmed valley area. People are building there. Water course. What are you expecting? About 2 years ago, I was here and I said, even in Magboro here, on a confirmed, people are selling land there and building houses there. Thank God that the Oyon Dam issue has been taken care of. But let's come down to the fundamentals. Number 1, I said, let there be control of migration. Number 2, it's a sing-song, climate change. Very sadly, Africa contributes about 3% to climate change, but suffers about 97% of the effect. Why? Because of underdevelopment. One of the consequences of climate change is heavy flooding, heavy waves, right? So one of the things we can do is to build what I call the Great Wall.
Okay.
Sadly, the Great Wall has become climate apartheid.
The Great Wall, would that be figurative or literally?
Literally, you have a co-Atlantic City project there, where they've built a great wall,
Yeah.
cutting off the Atlantic Ocean, creating a haven for the haves at the expense of the have-nots. Why not consider all the spectrum from the have-nots to the haves? That is one area in the middle of the Atlantic, well protected.
Yeah, but when the disaster comes, how protected will those,
Fantastic.
you know, confined areas be?
So-
Because climate change knows no borders, does it? I mean, let's even talk about government's disaster plans. Does government have any?
Yeah.
If we conclude that government does not have any, what kind of plans should government have in place to mitigate this kind of problems?
Thank you. Number one, let me still go back to what you said earlier
Yeah.
about these other civil groups. There is one group, Lekki Ekpe Residents and Stakeholders Association. Fantastic. I happen to be on their forum. They are taking conscious steps on a daily basis, engaging government. I'm not saying they agree on every issue, because there are political constraints here and there. But one thing they've not done, they've not kept quiet. And
Yes,
as of today,
they've not kept quiet. Is anybody listening?
well, little by little, something is being done. Even by themselves. Of course, they live there. VGC, Lekki, in the rainy period, you can't go there. But we thank God we cannot go back to 2012 again. Yes, Nigerian Hydrological and Survey Agency has given a release this year that 384 communities will be flooded across Nigeria. We are all angry that you should name all the communities. That's about 35 states. Maybe this Kasina would have been flagged. Something would have been done more urgently. You see, the truth about our government system so far is that it is not yet a people's government. It is a government of the few for the few by the few. Everything happening is known to the planners. Even when the disaster is coming, enforcement is compromised on the altar of politics.
Yeah, but if we have the meteorological agency, for instance, every year they come up with the forecast of likelihood of, you know, flooding and all of that. They are a government agency.
Yeah.
Is it just enough to say there's going to be flooding here and here, or maybe 30 states or 26 states will be flooded and all of that, and it leaves there? What kind of technical advice would they give to government to say, do this so that this doesn't happen, as the case may be?
One of the things about government is that government moves slowly. They are being challenged. It is not enough to reel out statistics. Show us the action you have taken. But one thing they can do is to engage other arms of government. Like when she asked about what is government doing. Lagos State government, for example, today has a program for the 5 divisions of the state. Fantastic, right? So if they are consistent, it should to an extent mitigate, if not minimize the effect.
What I want to know is exactly what plans should be in place in practical terms.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Very simple. Number one, the drainage system must be well connected from the cities and the habitations to the rivers, to the ocean. 2, there must be effort to build walls, effective walls, right, around those water courses so as to prevent the water from what overflowing. Because one of the things we enjoy is the height we are above the sea level. Now, if you build walls to keep water within its course, you do what? The few that will flow over can be more easily managed. And of course, we know about climate change. We just must take action to minimize, to reduce the effect of climate change. Very sadly, the world had moved very fast until Trump came. We are hoping that he will see sense, because in his tenure alone, you know what flood has done to America. Yeah. It shows that there's nobody isolated. We need to build on that also. Our carbon dependence is still unusually heavy. So there, I'm happy. I read a lot about things being done, plans being made to emphasize renewable energy. That is something. Then one thing, I talked about climate sensitive habitation. The people, they are not statistics. They are human beings. And I'm sure they are not on a death or suicide mission.
So
Nobody says...
How can the people help themselves? Is that what you're...
Part
yes,
of the
what
education.
Can they do?
Part of the education to be given to them. And one of the things, apart from... Because, you see, there's what you call adaptive habitation. If you know the challenge you are facing, it's bound to influence the approach you take. Are you with me? We really do not have adaptive settlements yet. We behave as if we are still in 1950. No. There's a lot threatening us today. And in the area of education, civil societies, the government, just come out and tell the people, you should try to live like this. Oh, try to give some reasonable space between your settlements. Try to do what? Plant trees. Apart from being the lungs of the earth, they are the things that keep the soil. The rate of wash away, runoff is so heavy. Of course. You know, and what
that tree planting aspect is very, very important. And you know, remember in primary school, we actually taught that our lives, our entire lives depend on trees.
In
they give us,
in the primary school, we planted, in fact, personally, I planted one tree every year because it was mandated. In primary school, we have to go to plant a tree. So we plant tree. Every year you plant one tree. Every year you plant one tree.
So imagine how many trees would have all around.
Yeah, I have five.
Yeah.
So I have 6 trees to my credit.
I wish I could say the same. I don't even know where the tree. Okay, there are trees in my father's compound.
All right,
in the village. I planted trees. Come to think of it. You know, but how seriously really should government and individuals take this? I mean, look at the town planning issue. Town planning will not even allow you plant trees if you wanted to start with.
They are more relaxed now.
Okay.
They are more relaxed now, yes. If you come to my compound, I have so many trees there. They call me European. You know. I mean, if you come there, you get a fresh breath. It's like, oh, fine, fantastic. This is a natural place. I don't need a mansion. A 3-bedroom is okay for me.
There you go.
And you know, you'll be sure that the shade you get during the day, you'll be sure that the, you know, what
the fresh air.
Not just fresh air, the breaker.
Yes.
No matter how strong the wind is, the trees are there. You get,
and no matter how harsh
the scenery,
is.
You cannot beat it. It is nature speaking. Yeah.
All right. Now, let's narrow it down to these people in Jibia and part of
Ogun State,
and even in part of Delta State and also Edo State. Now, our people, in practical terms, have very strong attachment to where they live, especially when it is that this is our ancestral lands and all of that. When you have a place that is prone to flood, and this is their ancestral home, in real terms, when you say, okay, relocate from there, how do you handle a situation like that, especially when they have to move and then, because issues like this can happen anytime.
How do you relocate
How
them
do we relocate people
losing
like that
their
without
sense of ancestry?
Thank you. Relocation is an extreme option.
Okay.
What we are saying is adapt your settlement to the realities of the present day.
Okay. But these people are poor
How do they adapt?
Yes,
Because
the habit issue and the poverty issue can never be underemphasized. I talked about Lekki Epe residents. These are middle to upper income group. What they've done for themselves, I cannot see anybody in Ajegule doing it. Or in Mushi. It's not possible. Even the congestion you have in Ajegule and Mushi, you can never have it in those places. Much more is that their residents, they are so active. They have their laws, they have their rules. You cannot break it. We need such things, even in the slum dwellings. Because at the end of the day, we are all human beings.
And we're all involved.
And we're all involved, right? Now, tackling the poverty issue, which is part of the adaptive technology too. Every settlement, every geographical area has a gift. With how many industries do we have? We don't have much. Even in our farming, what success have we really made of it? Look at the Middle Belt crisis today, the herdsman farmer crisis. Do you know the impact it will have?
Tomatoes are very costly now, because you can testify to that.
Exactly.
I can.
What we are doing, we are deforesting every place. With deforestation, you expose the soil.
It's interesting you talk about this, you know, the farming aspect of it, the impact, you know, the herdsman crisis is having. This flooding too is actually overflowing farmlands, entire
washing farmlands
Yes.
away, including crops.
The issue is, it didn't get there overnight.
And even livestock. We have over 200 cows. You know what that means.
Killed in Kasina. Are you telling me that it's rocket science or it's voodoo? It is not.
Incidentally, Jibia is the president's homestead.
Fantastic. Then you are rushing relief materials there. It's a comfort issue, but practically speaking, little effect. You can't even build their homes for them. In fact, most of those homes, you know, like you said, traditional settlements. But coming down, the people themselves need to be empowered. And government alone cannot do everything. They have a residents association, they have the CDA, you get. You see CDA saying, oh, let us build a gutter. Please bring 5,000. In a settlement of about 100,000, 5 people bring. You know what I'm trying to say? You see,
in other words, government has failed to provide drainage, provide roads, provide the right environment, and so the people have to help themselves.
The people themselves have not shown sufficient awareness. They have not taken possession, ownership of this problem. It is my job to solve this problem. I'm the one that will suffer.
Yeah,
Do you understand?
But these things are technical issues. They are professional issues where an average farmer wouldn't know how to handle issues of flooding or issues of residents or issues of how to locate my house or how to build a house.
Won't they further complicate the issue?
Exactly. So what they understand maybe is that if originally I was supposed to build a mud house, I can say, okay, let us contribute more money or save more money to build a cement house, as the case may be. That's all they know.
Yeah, that's true. In fact, law enforcement or enforcement of the relevant building laws has received a lot of bashing. I really don't know what the town planning authority does in most places. In Lagos, the problem was there. The former Minister for Environment will say one thing today, tomorrow he changes his mouth. You know what I'm trying to say? That's Adijari. The issue remains that it has become a money-spinning issue.
Yeah, the ecological fund, for example.
No, I'm not talking enforcement. Okay. Oh, you just go and pay your town planning, whatever, and whatever you like, build. Then later they say, oh, yes, we are trying, we are enforcing. What are they enforcing?
But what would it take, really? You know, one thing in Nigeria, everyone knows you can't start a business without registering with the Corporate Affairs Commission.
Yes.
It is by law.
Basically.
What would it take to have the same kind of situation in the building where you're going to build? You must have to go to get a plan and then register.
That is the issue.
What would it take to have that?
Before now, it has not been so. Because of the level of poverty and maybe level of development. The government has abdicated on a lot of these duties. But the awareness is there now. If you hear about town planning approval, it's more about the money they will collect. And like you said sometime, in some cases, some people may need to be relocated. You don't relocate overnight. One of the things we've done here is to make the government seem as an enemy of the people. It's not supposed to be so.
As a matter of fact, in many instances, when it comes to the issue of relocating people, you hear, oh, the meteorological services have put out a warning out there, and government says, please, oh, people, oh, move from the lowlands to the highlands.
To the highlands, and that's it.
And that's
no
what you hear from
provision,
government.
People become
no
more
guides,
confused.
no.
The people become more confused
Yes.
when that happens, because
Yes.
it's like disaster is coming, and then they're waiting. What nature, what dimension is this disaster going to take? You don't know, and then they're saying you should relocate.
To where?
You see, go abroad. When issues like this occur, they've built alternative accommodation. It's so much easier to move if you have a place you are going to. Right? So, what the government needs to do, there's this concept of new town settlements. They may need to take it more seriously. And it's not difficult. Because even the current settlements, let them put some face to it by way of planning. One, reduce the congestion. Number two, emphasize the drains and the waterways. It's so simple. Like I said, number three, build the walls that will keep the water in. And do not forget that when the people themselves are made a part of this planning process, yes, it will not happen overnight, but educate them that, look, this area is susceptible to this type of problem particularly. Right? So, I mean, let them bring suggestions. You'll be shocked at what those people know at their level. They know a lot. A time there was when you open Ogun Dam here, you can't pass this long bridge. But since 2012 or thereabouts, they found a way to manage it.
Did you even learn any real lessons from the 2012 incident?
No, it's like I said, we're not going back there.
7 million people were actually affected by that flooding in
2012
yes,
5 states.
It's the worst thing that ever happened in this country.
Yes.
You see?
No one has really seen that.
Yes. And one thing too is, dam. We have to be careful. There are alternatives to building dams.
Okay.
Right?
What are they?
Fantastic. You find out that if you build a dam, it blocks water on one area and dries up water on the other area. Instead of dam, right, you can consider appropriate linkages. Because one of the things in life is that even from what seems a disaster, you can make a fantastic tourist event.
Like you have in Venice.
Exactly.
Yeah. What
You
a
see,
great example.
by the time you start thinking proactively, you can link all these water bodies together and it becomes a, yes,
Yeah.
you've mentioned it, not even in the Netherlands.
In the Netherlands too, yeah.
Go there. Fantastic. So it is not rocket science.
Okay.
All right. We have. Okay.
All
we have
right.
to.
We have to leave it there. John Coco is an environmentalist, of course, talking to us about the flooding situation in Kasina.
Thank you very much.